Welcome, everybody. And I am super excited to have Scott Simpson here, who is just a brilliant procurement mind and has been in this space for a long time and is super creative for anyone in government. He's one of those CEOs that you desperately want to hang on to kind of person because he really digs in and understands how you can get to an amazing outcome, and how procurement can really sometimes make or break that in projects and government. So very excited to have him here. I'm gonna, Scott, let you just sort of describe where you are now, where you've been, and what kind of things you've been working on.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me, Crystal. My name is Scott Simpson. I am permanently with the DHS Procurement Innovation Lab. I've been there since 2019. And as part of one of my duties there is as the ACT-IAC Acquisition Community of Interest Chair, Government Chair. And so I do a lot with the ACT-IAC COIs, and especially with the Acquisition COI, we kind of touch on sort of everything. And so we love to have these kind of cross COI events so that we can bring our goodness over to you and you can bring your goodness over to us. And been passionate about CX ever since I joined the Pill. I was a DITAP graduate in 2020, and so really drank the Agile Kool-Aid as well as the CX Kool-Aid kind of in the same gulp. And before that, a lot of CX kind of knowledge with not knowing that it was called CX, but just a lot of customer focus with my customers. So happy to be here today.
Great. So, and Scott and I actually met and started talking at a COI meeting at ACT-IAC, and we started talking about how we were both really passionate about this intersection of CX and acquisition. And we said, oh, we should totally do a session on that and have people understand it. And it was really timely because there's so many things that are happening now in this space. So many new things have come out around procurement and how procurement is changing in government. And so let's why don't we start there, Scott, and I'll just start in with some questions, and then feel free to throw questions in the chat as we go. I'll try to get to those, and we'll have some time for questions at the end as well. But so throw those in as we go. We're definitely want to work in any burning questions people have. So I'll just start by saying, right, GSA just released a whole nother tranche of FAR section rewrites, right? Big
Keep
tranche.
coming out on Fridays.
Yes. Happy Friday. And so, from this last tranche, what do you think? I know you're deeply involved in this. You were deeply involved in the rewrite of at least one or more of those. What do you think is the most interesting and impactful changes that have come out recently?
Yeah, so the one that I really like is the one where they put innovation into the FAR. There's a section now, and I can't remember if it's 8 or 12, but it says in this section, contracting officers should be innovating. Like that's almost a verbatim quote. And then it says, and if you don't know where to start, here's a link to the periodic table of acquisition innovations. And so for those of you who don't know, the periodic table of acquisition innovations is like a playbook that contracting officers, cores, PMs can use to kind of streamline their acquisitions. It was developed in partnership with ACT-IAC. It's maintained on the Acquisition Gateway, but it's available to everybody. So it's an open link. So government and industry can go out and check it out. And it's got samples there with use cases as well. So it's a really great resource. And to have that like in the text of the FAR now, I just think it's really amazing. And I really like some of these that talk about requirements development, because coming from the Procurement Innovation Lab, we know that the sooner in the acquisition process someone is starting to leverage innovations, the better results they get. So if a team waits and they apply innovations after the solicitation is released, their chances of success are a lot lower than a team who begins to use those innovations way back when they're doing market research and the requirements development and everything else. That's documented data from the pill. And so, CX, all of that stuff is right there at the start. And there's a lot of great innovations that can be used there. One of them is like the civilian acquisition workshops, where they, over the course of a week, will help you develop your acquisition requirement in a very like CX kind of way, with bringing in your users and having whiteboards and stuff like this. Really great process. Another one, vendor one-on-ones, where you put out your requirement and then you bring in a vendor to talk through like, what do we get right, what do we get wrong, and all of these things can be found on the periodic table. So having that out there is just amazing. It gives me chills to think that like people are going to read that and like click on the what's this kind of link and like discover a new resource, because that's one of the things with the periodic table, is that getting that messaging out there has been tough. And so now that it's in the regs, like it's great.
Nice, nice, nice. So people will read that. They will say, "Oh, shoot, this is required. I need to go check this out." Uh,
Well, it's
I
not
mean,
required. It's like
yeah,
strongly
yeah,
encouraged,
yeah.
right? Yeah. We're
It's not a
trying to, I
shall.
think,
They took out a whole
right,
lot of
exactly.
shalls, I know.
Yeah. Part of the, I think the overhaul is all about giving flexibility back to the contracting officer. So, and that's what innovations are all about too, right? Flexibilities.
Yeah.
So we're, making sure people get a better outcome. And,
Yep.
better outcome can mean a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, I really think that it means a better service for the citizen, or the taxpayer or the public, whatever you want to call it. But, that's what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah, and those seesaws, the civilian acquisition workshops are so great. There, I had teams doing those, and it's the government team that actually comes in to gather the acquisition folks, the program folks and they get such a great level set before they even start
Yeah.
the work, and so that everybody really understands what the outcomes are that they're driving to.
Oh,
So,
look, Andrea Azarkan-Heller is on here. She's one of the co-facilitators for Seesaw.
yep.
Jonathan Evans, great guy. He does a lot of them too.
Fun.
It's just such a nice process to go through. It takes a bit of time, but you get such a great result at the end of it.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, okay, so these kinds of changes, these innovation changes, how are those like really empowering CEOs and program managers in government to kind of maximize value, improve service delivery? Like, what's that nexus there of like why do those things matter so much, and what does that get you in the end, and how does that empower people to be more flexible and to get better outcomes?
Yeah. So from what I'm seeing, it's a lot of flexibilities, because there's no one size fits all, right? And so a small, simple procurement for a commercial off-the-shelf item, like that should be done fast and easy. And that's what this is trying to promote, is that, fast and easy should be the way that we're doing as much of this as possible. And the CEO's got the flexibility to do that now. And even when, the large, more complex, less simple things are coming out, like we're still going to streamline those. And a great example of that is one that just came out, like last week, 2 weeks ago, is that the determination of findings for a single award BPA doesn't have to go all the way up now. It's down at a lower level. And so if you think about how much time it takes to like run those up, like you're talking 6 weeks, 2 months to get like a piece of paperwork approved. And that's like 2 months where you're unsure whether your acquisition strategy is finalized or not. And
Yeah.
so it's big like roadblock. And so to remove that and say like, we're going to do that, approve that at a lower level now. I mean, that is just going to empower CEOs and make them valued and speed the process up along so that, you can get to your solicitation faster. Now, I did have a great conversation with somebody today, and like, we do want to recognize that some of that stuff was put in for good reason. Like when you're doing a single award BPA, there's some additional risk in that. But you don't have to have that documented way up the chain. You can have that conversation with a lower level to say, hey, do the benefits of using a single award BPA outweigh the risks of like that vehicle, a single award BPA? Or maybe there's a different innovation that I can use. We were talking the same time about how a lot of people are using single award BPAs because it's just so much faster, right? Because when you do the orders under them, you only have to go to one.
Right.
But there's new flexibilities coming in now where, like, if it's under $7.5 million, you can do it really easy anyways. And there's some other flexibilities coming in there. So there's lots of stuff there to decrease risk. I'm all about it.
Yeah, the decreased thresholds are going to be pretty interesting, I think,
Mhm.
as and how people are making decisions about even maybe chopping up pieces of a larger project into something that's a little smaller. So yeah, that it'll be interesting to see how that works itself through. So we've talked a little bit about how this is how this is different on the government side. How is this going to affect vendors? And which what are they going to see that's a little bit different?
Yeah. Um, I can't predict that. I don't have a crystal ball to see like what they're going to see. I think it's going to depend agency to agency. I think that the next year is going to have a lot of questions, and so it's really important that we keep having these dialogues between government and industry. And I know that at GSA they're doing a great job of like trying to encourage that. So they have another industry day on September 10th, I think, that you can go and register for now, where they're going to walk through some of the new things that were just released for Part 8 and Part 12. And so those kind of things are going to have to continue so that we have like a common set of understanding about what it is we're seeing out there. And that goes down to like the local level too. It's not just like way up at the SPE level, the procurement executive. Like honestly, a CO needs to be doing that too. And I know that a lot of the great COs are out there doing that, but from my perspective, what I think vendors are going to see is that there's going to be a bigger emphasis on innovations and speed, as well as continuing what we've seen from earlier in the administration with like a focus on cost savings. But hopefully, all those things are still rooted in the partnership that makes this all work, right? We can't do what we do in government without our industry partners, right? There's no program that operates by itself, no matter where you look at it, right? We need a good partnership. And so a lot of the innovations that we're talking about are about building that partnership. So you look at how do you communicate with industry? And again, you go back to vendor one-on-ones, reverse industry days, oral presentations, those coding challenges, like all of that stuff helps us better communicate. There's been mythbusters out there for ages that, it was nice to have a mythbuster out there on paper, but people didn't seem to like pick it up for some reason. So how do we train the workforce to be more comfortable to have those conversations? One of the things I'm really excited about there is AI and having the ability to, especially once it's at that point where you can have more of a voice conversation or maybe even put a face to the voice, where you can say, hey, this is going to be a vendor, and you can practice having your one-on-one conversation with it. And it's going to be queued up and like you can go into it and like have practice. Because that's one of the hardest things I think is just getting that training out there, right? But that is going to be so easy to do now with AI.
Oh, that's really fun because I know that on the government side, people are very nervous about what they might say in a conversation with the vendor, right? Because they don't want to say the wrong thing, but
Right.
and so it tends to shut down conversation, right?
Right.
So that would be super
So
cool.
if you could use AI to like practice with it,
Yeah.
you can even like with AI, you could dump a bunch of emails in there. You could use a transcript from like an earlier meeting. Like there's a lot of different ways to do it in there. And you could say like, hey, what are the top like 2 or 3 questions that this vendor might ask me when I go into the have of this conversation? And you can at least have those, they might not get asked, but AI is pretty good. So you can like prepare those answers, or you can just like practice with it. And afterwards you can ask it like, how did I do? If you look at this Mythbuster and this far, like, how did I do? Um,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
much stuff
that's
out there.
fun. I love that. Very cool.
Now, I'm
So,
not saying, whoa, I'm going to walk that back and say, like, I'm not doing that. No one I know
right.
is doing that, but that is capable or
Yes.
possible soon, if not now.
Yes, yes, love it. What I did here is maybe a prediction around some little more speed, a little
Mhm.
more focus on cost savings, right? Real emphasis on partnership and making sure that we're creating good partnerships in our teams who are working together, government and
Yep.
industry. So
But
I love that.
I'm also going to put out there that I think there's going to be a lot of confusion in the next year. We're going to go around and do a bunch of workshops and training sessions. But if industry has questions, they should ask those questions to the CEO or to whomever else, like, so that they get the understanding that they need. And if you've got questions now, start asking them now. If you've noticed, when the new FAR parts are put out, there's a place to say, like, submit your comments. Those comments are being looked at by the Office of Government Policy, government-wide policy. So if you've got comments, like, send them in, or thoughts, suggestions, whatever else, and start talking to your CO to see, like, how is this going to play out?
Yeah, love that. Okay. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the conversation that would occur before, right? During the planning and research, maybe during the solicitation. Um, what sometimes happens is that, right, that vendors might be sitting around waiting for information. They might be if they did not win, wondering why they did not win. Is there anything in here that's really going to help for the communication after selection and how that might shift a little bit?
Yeah. So going back to what we talked about earlier with the periodic table, one of the things that it has in there is share your evaluation documentation. That's considered innovative.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's a best practice, right? So the more that we can share with vendors, the better understanding that they get and that we get about the process. And to me, that helps, get a better quote later for the next time. And I'm sure that vendors have the same kind of thing. Like, they can use that feedback to submit a better quote the next time as well, which is probably not going to be to me. It's going to be like my colleague at a different agency, or for, maybe even with this in the same agency. But at the end of the day, it improves those quotation submissions. So if we can share, the more we can share with industry, the better. And so, like, going back to the share evaluation documentation, what I advise teams is you take the evaluation documentation you have. So, Phil Cox Consulting sends in a quote, and I do the evaluation documentation on that. And when I'm done, I give that to Phil Cox Consulting, and you have everything that's in there, kind of verbatim. You can see exactly what I wrote up about your quote. And then I even and that to me is simple, right? It takes a little bit of planning up front, where you know that you're going to do one document per company instead of like one massive document with all the companies. But doing it up front enables me to just like drag and drop it into an email and say, here you go, learn from it. And then if I have the time, follow up with a conversation, right? Where I can kind of
yeah,
walk you through what happened in there. Now, what I like even better is when contracting officers are able to share like a redacted version of the best value trade-off decision. That is possible right now, where it can walk through, we had these 3 quotes received, A, B, and C. We thought that A was the best in this part and B was the best in this part. We did our trade-off, and this is why we came to the decision of to award to, this company. If we can redact that a little bit and send it out, that just gives so much information.
yeah,
I think it's a great learning process. It reduces a lot of the confusion about the process. What I hate though is that it gives a lot of insight into the government's decision making after the fact, right? Like, a lot of vendors will say after that, oh, now I understand. You were putting more emphasis on this part of my proposal than on this part of the proposal.
yeah,
And it's like,
yeah,
yes, that's the case. And I don't mind that. I just think that should be communicated in the solicitation, right? That part is
yeah,
great information. But it shouldn't be after award that the vendors are learning about that. It should be upfront when I'm saying in my solicitation, here's what I want you to talk about. And that's something that the seesaws and that the other kind of brainstorming sessions that the pill and others do can really help focus in on. Instead of having, please describe your technical and management approach, it's maybe, hey, we are having trouble retaining staff at this really remote location. What are you going to do in your management approach to hire, retain, and promote staff at this location? That puts
Yeah.
everybody on like, hey, this is what we want you to talk about, right?
Yes.
So
Could be a
much
highlight.
easier. Yeah. So it's really nice to get that ahead of time, but sharing it afterwards, share as much as possible. That's what the whole key is all about, especially, and the PTA I had said as well. It's got a couple of different techniques. So you think about like an Alliant 2 or whatever version of Alliant we're on now, where you get like hundreds and hundreds of submissions.
Yep.
Well, it's really hard to do an oral debrief with each of those. But you could still have a general debrief and invite whoever wants to come to listen, right? And so we have a thing called a group debrief where you do just that, and like you send everyone their individual evaluation reports, but then you have a group debrief just to get the ball rolling and get stuff going there. The last one that I really like, and it just came out in the commercial purchasing tranche 2 weeks ago in 8.4, is that instead of having this kind of wishy-washy, vendors may request a brief explanation, it says vendors can request a brief explanation within 3 days of award. And so it gives everybody that common timeline. So it's not like someone's going to come back like 2 months from now and say, oh, I want that, brief explanation. It's like, here we go. We're all on the same page, 3 days. So I like that as well, just because it keeps everything moving.
Yeah, nice. And that I know GSA was running a pilot that was similar to this, where that's informed pilot where you do the
Mhm.
meetings afterward, but this sort of brings everybody else into that and allows all agencies to and maybe encourages, right, a little bit, allow agencies to do that kind of thing. So that I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
More communication, I'm a
More,
huge
as much as you can.
yes. So that's great. That's going to help the whole community. So, we talked a little bit about the partnership up front, more connection on the government team up front, more communication through the process. How does all of that, like, really help us translate into better service delivery outcomes?
Yeah. I mean, I think
That
communication,
connection with CX, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think communication is at the heart of getting those better results and having that CX kind of tie in. Because the more you communicate, the more people understand. And so it goes to a lot of different points. The first is, if you're having one of those seesaws, that whole point of that is communication, right? You're communicating amongst the stakeholders about what's important, what your requirement is, why. You're getting rid of the things that aren't really a requirement, or you're, modifying them a way to say like, we'd like this, but it's not mandatory. So if you start at the front, that helps a whole lot. And taking that into market research, then the more you can communicate that with industry, I mean, you just see so much better result, because I mean, industry is honestly the expert in a lot of the technology, right? And so when we put out a requirement to say, hey, we need this, it gives industry hopefully an opportunity to come back and say, yeah, we think we know what you mean, but like we don't quite understand there. Talk to us about that.
Yeah.
Or to say like, well, there's a better standard now actually, and it's cheaper. Would you like that instead? And it allows us the conversation to happen between government to say like, well, actually, we need it to meet, like whatever NIST standard, and industry to say, well, it does, and here's how. And then we can change things, and like this, it's just great. And so there's so many ways to do that with like, and people normally start with, well, did you do an RFI? Well, to me, that's not really communication, right? That is very one-way, paper-based. So if you're going
Yeah.
to do an RFI, that is the starting point for communication, because after that, that's when you should have one-on-ones. That's where you should have, industry days or reverse industry days or whatever else you have, because that's when you get really that great feedback on it. one of the things that I was working on at the Pill was co-creation even. And the co-creation was going to be, we have this requirement, but it's really in like the objective kind of stage. And we want industry to come in and help us co-create what the actual requirement is before the solicitation is released. And so like that would be amazing. Like that is communication to the max, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that allowed?
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, you
That
do
would be,
certain things to set it up and
uh-huh.
it's allowed.
Okay.
Yeah. So, all of this helps us get a better outcome. And again, going back to like the data from the pill shows that the more communication you have, like the pill has data that shows that if you do one RFI, you get a better result than doing no RFIs. But if you do two RFIs, you get a better result than that. And if you do vendor one-on-ones, you get even better results. So there's data out there to point us to this. And again, that better result is, a better service to the public, which is what we're all about. And, whether that's through a couple of different layers, like it all gets down there in the end. And I think that the streamlining of the FAR is going to help us speed up procurements so that we can get that communications full circle faster. So we can start learning, and it's not going to take a year and a half or 2 years to get something done and learn from it. It'll take, 9 months, and then we can learn from it. And so the next time we do it, we've got that like right fresh in our heads. So that's where I think we're going with the communications, and that's why I think it's important. So I see a question in the chat from Quan Boatman about the data outcomes. The best place to see some of that data is in the Pill yearbook. So the Pill yearbooks are published every year. It's kind of like the Pill annual report, and those are published on dhs.gov/pill, PIL. And you can go and take a look at the data that's in there for FY24, FY23, all the way back to I think FY17. We've got about 7 years of data now, and there's more published every year. So we don't have one place where all our data is published, but we do have a knowledge management system. And that knowledge management system is our repository for that data. And so it allows us to tie that into Power BI and leverage our data so we can ask questions of it and stuff like that. And hopefully pretty soon ask like agentic AI to look at it as well and look for trends and other things that we haven't kind of spotted. Was
Very
there
fun.
another question that I missed, Crystal?
No, just I
Okay.
think this emphasizing, Andrew had some stuff and this, which sounds like she's playing with some fun tools. And Martha emphasizing,
Andrea's always got fun stuff to play on.
I
There's
know.
sometimes she'll put a chat out and she's going to be like, hey, I'm going to go on like Vibe and AI. You want to come and watch? And like
Yes,
she'll get a whole group in there. It's awesome.
I love
That's
it.
like another great thing is I think the cross collaboration just among agencies right now is amazing because
Yeah,
there's so much that's been siloed within like one agency. And now we're getting a chance to like share the goodness. And I just think it's fantastic.
yeah, yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, so we've talked a lot about like the government vendor relationship, how to create a good team up front. Let's talk a little bit about the acquisition workforce across government, right? And because they're the folks that have to adopt this, bring this together, right? How do we ensure that they get trained, that they're operating sort of consistently across agencies? Like how do we make sure that starts to percolate and really happen?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things going on there. The first is that when almost every new FAR part is being published to acquisition.gov, like those model deviations, they're coming out with a practitioner's album. And the practitioner's album does a couple of different things. The first thing, and it's meant for everybody. So this is really knowledge for like the acquisition workforce as well as industry. It's just a great tool. The practitioner's album first walks you through what is this? Like, FAR Part 12 was just released. What is it doing? And so it talks you through that high level. It tells you like what was kept in, what was removed, what was changed. And then it will actually go through the line out. So it'll have the old text and it'll show you the strike through for everything that was taken out. And if you take that and then you read it with the kind of the line in, you'll get the full picture of like what is the new regulation, or the model deviation. So that's kind of the first thing that it does. And then it also gives you some what are being called smart accelerators. And then they're like tips and tricks for like, how would I leverage this? And so a lot of them are coming from the periodic table of acquisition innovations. But it's a really great way for the acquisition workforce and industry to like stay up to date on the pieces, the parts of the model deviation that are coming out. And it's really kind of digestible. Each one takes maybe half an hour, 45 minutes to go through. And they're really, it's like, after you read them, you're like, oh, all right. And it's nice because you can go back to them as well and be like, okay, there was something in here I wanted to get, but, and then the acquisition workforce is incentivized to go through them, because if you get through the whole practitioner album, you can get between a half and 2 continuous learning points for every model deviation. So, there's 52 model deviations. That's like your CLPs for a year if you stay up to date on it. So that's like the first way. The other way is that I think a lot of the agencies are having town halls. They're having, I know at GSA, they're doing a twice weekly kind of brown bag where they go through like what are the recent changes, and like it's a pretty deep dive. And it's kind of like a combination of a brown bag, which with like pub trivia. They're really fun. I like it a lot.
Yeah. I tried to crash one. They wouldn't let me in. I didn't have
Sorry,
the
Chris.
address anymore.
Sometime we'll have to have coffee again. You can just shoulder surf with me.
Yeah.
So then, a couple places too have mentioned coaching. And I'm all about coaching. I think coaching is a lot more effective than training, or just training, right? I think coaching lets you take the training that you've learned and apply it in a safe way. And when I say safe, I don't mean like you're going to break something if you do it otherwise, but I mean like you feel safe because you've got a buddy there with you, right? Like you're going through it with someone who's already used it. And so there's lots of coaching that is being offered through SAG testing, and it's coaching for anybody across the government. And it's meant to do a couple of things. The first thing it's meant to do is to like test out and like road test the new language, kind of like a beta test, make sure the code works, right? But the second thing it's meant to do is to help those new folks go through it. So if you've been in contracting for 30 or 40 years and you're like, hey, I don't know how to do this under 8.4 anymore. That's what, SAG testing is there for, to help walk those people through it. And then hopefully what it's there to do is once SAG testing gets like 1 or 2 people through, those people can go out and be like, hey, I'm like the champion now. I did an 8.4. So if you need help, I'm going to do it. And so it's like a peer-to-peer coaching after that. So it's a really great way to get workforce training in. Now, one of the things I think that this all benefits from too is that things aren't going to be consistent across agencies for the first couple of years, right? Agencies are going to test things differently, and that is going to allow people to see what works and what doesn't work. And hopefully the testing will be shared. And so,
where do I scan this?
sorry, Samara, what was that?
Nothing. Sorry, Scott.
No worries. So that testing is going to look different at all the different agencies. And so hopefully that means that the good best practices are kept, and the ones that, aren't as effective, they're tried and then put either retested in a different way to get a different result, or they're like, hey, time out, we're not going to use that anymore. And one of the things that was launched earlier this summer was the Far Forward Alliance. And it's got 2 aspects. One is like a monthly kind of brown bag, but the other is a message board. And it's a message board that anyone across the federal government, whether you're in DoD or a civilian agency, has access to. So you can ask questions of like, hey, I'm doing an 8.4 for the first time. Like, is this how I'm actually supposed to do it? Or you can share your best practices to say, hey, I just did my first Part 12 under $7.5 million. This was my result. And whether you're at the Federal Railroad Administration or whether you're with the U.S. Air Force, you can talk to each other. And it's amazing. Like, oh my goodness, the defense and civilian worlds can talk to each other. It's fantastic. So we're
Is it
really
happening? I
excited
mean,
about
do you see it happening at this point, or?
It's a little slow, but
Okay.
yes, we're seeing a lot of the questions coming in so far that I've seen are questions. They're like, hey, this was removed from the FAR. Does that mean I shouldn't be doing it, or should I be doing something else?
Mm.
But 8 and 12 were just released. They're not effective until November 3rd. So we're going to get a lot more come the new fiscal year.
Okay. Oh, fun. So this is such fun stuff. There's we had some good feedback from Chris Brandriff. And Chris says, I'm getting protest alarm bells across all of this innovation, and I'm not sure that my legal and procurement staff will support it.
Yeah.
We need this early vendor engagement, right? Is there any place you can point us to in the rewrites that Chris can share with her leadership or his?
I mean, a lot of the stuff has been there forever, Chris. There's nothing in the FAR so during market research, the communication that you're allowed to have with vendors has always been fairly discretionary for the CO. You did not have to have it with every vendor. You could have it with different ones. You could have it just the piece that had to be monitored was the information that you were sharing. But again, if you're doing it in a consistent manner, it was normally okay. I would say that if you had a legal or a contracting officer or a level above who was kind of unfamiliar with it, have them sit in with you or like pregame it, right? Like, hey, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do this. What are my boundaries? And then have them come along or like check in with them afterwards. But I think that it's really the way it's going to go. And the innovations are the same way. So again, coming from the pill, we saw that innovations were most likely to be not only effective, but accepted when they were talked about early. So if I've got a requirement and I'm going to do a coding challenge, I'm not going to tell legal that like the day before I release the solicitation when I say, hey, I've got this solicitation for you to review, right? I'm going to bring legal in way back at market research or acquisition planning where I'm starting to think about that. And I'm going to say, hey, I saw this thing out there at the periodic table. It has a coding challenge. I've been thinking about how it would be useful here. Let's talk through it. Because I've found that attorneys especially, and I'm one of them, like to go and talk to other people, right? And they want to do their research to see like, has there been protests on this or whatever else? And that takes a bit of time. So if you give them 5 days, it's not enough time. But if you give them a month, 2 months, because you're still just in the acquisition strategy phase, that's enough time for them to get comfortable or for you to meet in the middle. So like they might not want to be way over here, but they might meet you in the middle instead of just saying, no, we can't do this. Last thing you can always do is reach out to your acquisition innovation advocate. So every agency within the federal government has an acquisition innovation advocate, an AIA. Sandra Oliver Schmidt is the one for DHS. Trevor Wagner is the one for Department of Commerce. Kimberly Himes is over at HHS. The list is out there. I think we linked to it in a few places, but you can always send me an email as well because we're there to share stories and we can't convince legal to do anything. What we do is we share stories for, hey, you've got this fear. You're afraid of a protest. Well, here's one that was protested and they won. What can you learn from that? Or here's one where they protested and they lost. What can you learn from that? Or we had another team over at this agency that had the same kind of fear, and this is what they did. Would you like to talk to their attorney? So there's lots of things that a coach can do there too. But between I think those 3 things, we can lower the fear. And all of this too is meant to reduce the risk of failure. We can't say that we're never going to get a protest. It's just not going to happen, right? So we just need to do what we say we were going to do in the solicitation and then reduce the risk as much as we can so that we can get that end result. And that end result, again, is not a protest-free solicitation. It's a requirement that gets the best result for the public.
Yeah, love this. So good and so important. And so I heard kind of in this rewrite, right, it's maybe pointing to the language that you mentioned that says you're encouraged to be innovative and check the periodic table, and reaching out to your acquisition innovation advocate, maybe joining some of the communities of practice that are out there.
Mhm.
That's the way to really start to create the culture change, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, good.
And then
And bring legal along, right? Let
come
legal
along,
know
right?
what you're hearing.
Yes, exactly. Legal, I find when they're asked early, they really like to have the conversation. Uh, my experience has been when they're put on the spot, that's when everything's kind of like, well, no, because an attorney's job, right, is to reduce the risk as much as possible, right? They want to have something that's defendable and like risk-free. And so if the choice is between doing something that they think is risky and not doing anything, they'll do nothing. So if you give them time to build that up, they're happy to have that conversation with you and get to the middle, I think.
Yeah.
Brent Maravilli is out there from the Pill too. He just dropped a webinar in there, or a Pillcast in there too, that talks about a lot of this. So check that out as well.
Oh, good. And the industry day you mentioned, right, on September
Yes, number 10.
September 10th. I'm already signed up for that. So
Excellent.
it's on GSA's website. If you are on Interact, they pushed it out 500 times in every Interact community.
And
Uh,
it's industry focused, but
uh,
if you're on here from government and you want to hear it again,
yeah,
jump on, sign up for it. Like government is encouraged to attend that as well.
yeah, yeah. And they will go into some detail on that one. So that'll
And
be
so I've got a story about that actually. So at the Pill, we do boot camps, and the boot camps teach 10 of the most popular, most effective innovative techniques. And we used to teach them for government. And then we got asked by industry so often that like, hey, can we learn? We said, well, all right, all of this stuff is public anyways. We'll teach one for industry. And that was really fun because then we could show industry like what it was that we were trying to do. And again, reduce fear. But the best boot camps we ever had were the blend of government and industry. And it was amazing because there was so much learning going on when government could say, well, this is why I would use that. And industry could say, well, yeah, but this is what you lose. And like you have this back and forth conversation. It was fantastic. And so I'm really excited about the GSA event on September 10th, just to see how that goes too, because I think it's going to be wonderful.
okay. Okay. And of course, you all are working with FAI and DAU to create training for the acquisition workforce across government, right? On these rewrites and
For sure.
yeah. Okay. So the formal training will be available to the acquisition workforce as well. Okay.
Oh, and I
So
see Caitlin just dropped the webinar link. Thanks, Caitlin.
yeah, awesome. Thanks, Caitlin. And so, as we're going through this, right, you said maybe some inconsistencies in the first year, maybe two. How will we tell in the future that this is working? Like, what are the signs that we will see, do you think?
I think that's like a true like CX kind of question, right? How are we going to measure the outcomes? I like it. Like it. So I think the first way is like whether people are using it. Whether you call that like, rate of adoption or whatever else, like if people are using the new tools, then it's a success. Especially because there's a lot of flexibilities, as I've mentioned in some of these deviations. And so there is the flexibility and the chance. Perfect example, right? FAR 8.4 points you to the GSA manual/regulation for placing a federal supply schedule order. And it used to stay in there that you didn't have to do a responsibility determination, or you did have to do one, but it now says you don't have to do a responsibility determination and you don't have to do a separate price, fair and reasonable price analysis. Now it says those are not required, but it doesn't say you can't do them. So to me, a good way of knowing, is this working, is if people adopt that and are not doing that separate fair and reasonable price determination or that separate responsibility determination. If they continue to go back and do those things, even though they're not required to, well, then we need to ask about like, why? Why are they doing that? And if it's a training thing, it needs to be trained. And if it's a risk thing, we need to talk through, does this actually lower risk? Which the FAR Council has said it doesn't, so we don't need to do it. But it's a conversation that's going to be had. So that's the first way, is that your rate of adoption. There's also some data out there that we can harvest to look at. Just if you look at like speed to award, for instance, there is like an average PALT time for how long it takes to award like an 8.4 GSA schedule. And so you could compare like the FY24, FY25, FY24 aggregate like PALT time for 8.4 awards to like your next like FY26, FY27, and you could maybe see like a decrease in the amount of PALT time. There's so many variations that go into that. I think that you'd have to do like a kind of a longitudinal study to look at like whether it's effective or not. The PIL tracks PALT too, and PALT, of course, is the procurement action lead time, how long it takes to award something. So that is the release of the solicitation to award. And there's a couple other markers in there too for like when your evaluation is complete, when your best value is complete, those kind of things. So you can look at all those kind of markers and see a trend at least. I think there's some more anecdotal kind of things that we can look at to see if these things are being helpful. So, are we doing faster market research? Are we doing better market research? How many quotes are we getting? That's a big one for me, is not like how many quotes we're getting, but are we getting the number of quotes we expected? So there's a lot of times where I'm talking to a team and they say, yeah, we expect, like 3 to 5 quotes, and they get like 2. Well, there was a disconnect there between your market research and what actually happened. What happened? And normally if you go back and you talk to the vendors, which a lot of people don't do, you can find out, oh, like we didn't know this was coming out. We had something else big. And so if you had communicated a little bit, like it all comes back to communication, right? If you had communicated a little bit that this was going to come out, and you can be wishy-washy about it, right? You can say, well, the government expects or anticipates this to come out in, give a month, and if it changes, communicate that too, because that's the biggest thing, is communicating when things change. So faster market research, better market research. You've also got, the flexibility and just the usage of innovations. I think that's going to be huge. But I think that the big thing that we need to do to make sure that this is successful is to inspire people to try things. There's a whole lot of people out there that are going to say, like, well, I got good results before without using this. Why should I use it? And so we have to show them why. And some of that is just going to come from, well, did you really like doing that DNF that had to go like way up? Like I didn't. I don't want to write that paperwork. Like we all complained about how much we have to write, and so like let's right size what we're documenting. We can inspire people to do that. And I was talking to a team again on Monday, and I talk to a lot of teams. I love talking to teams. And so they were trying a new innovation, and they had some jitters. And so we talked about it, and it came down to one part of the innovation they didn't have complete faith in. And I was like, well, all right, don't do that part. You don't have to. Try the rest of it and see if it works. And so a lot of that too is, like getting someone to try one thing, because if they try it once and they have a good experience, they're going to come back and try something else. It's kind of like an ice cream parlor, where if you try one flavor, you're going to come back and try all the flavors. Well, that's my hope, at least. And so, getting people to just try one thing is going to be huge.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, great.
What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is a good measure of success, Crystal? I didn't ask you that.
Yeah, I would, I mean, I think if we can see the increased communication, that's going to be huge, right? Because I think it's one of the biggest barriers. Like even when I just asked you, is that allowed, right?
Right.
Like I wasn't quite sure if that was allowed, right? And I think that there's a lot of
Well,
lore out there, folklore
agreed.
out there about what is and isn't allowed.
Well, let
And
me flip it for you though, too, because the FAR has always been cleared that it's not what's allowed that's innovation, right? If it's not unallowed, it's allowed.
Yeah.
You've got that flip side there. So it's messed up a lot of people to say like, oh no, it seems wrong. Well, it's okay. point me to somewhere where I'm not allowed to do this. You show me that. Well, you know, I don't know. And so it's having these conversations and getting the risk reduced. It's like, yeah, but I think it's good. It takes some bravery to get out there and do some of this stuff, and then to defend it. And so you've got lots of great champions out there that are supporting their people as they innovate, and hopefully we've got lots and lots more coming. But I'd also love to hear if anyone out there. I know there's a lot of industry people on there. So, what do you think the revolutionary FAR overhaul? How do you think it's going to be successful? You know, drop that in the chat and let me know, because I'm really interested to know that. I've got some guesses, but.
Yeah, how do we measure success? Well,
Yeah.
and Eris just asked a question that was really timely here.
Oh, no, not Eris. Oh, no.
That is, you know, we've talked a little bit about the acquisition workforce. Are you including cores and program officers in there? I mean, are they, like we say, you know, FAI and DAU training, that's really just kind of COs and CSs, but are,
Nope.
and maybe some course, but
The
how
definition
do
of
you
the
make
acquisition
sure?
workforce is anyone who has a FAC, so a federal acquisition certificate. And so whether you have a FAC C contracting, a FAC PM, or a FAC core, you're included in the acquisition workforce, and so you get all of the messages. And so I find that a lot of the best innovators are those PMs and cores. And then we have to link in the COs to them. But yeah, we're bringing everybody along. Whether you like it or not, you're coming along.
Yeah, I think this is great. It's great information for industry on this call because we are going to need to rely on industry to go out and push agencies to get innovative and explore more of these things. So, yeah, right, just having those conversations when you're out talking to agencies, making sure that program offices know that these things are you know that these things are in favor and in vogue at this point. So, we need all that culture change we can get.
Yeah, and I highly encourage industry to share like the government links from like acquisition.gov, or if you know, if people are a little unsure about something, have them email sagtesting@gsa.gov. Like it's the .gov email. So if they want a good response, like one that they can trust and like have stories shared from other agencies, like SAG testing, that's the place to go. Or like the DHS pill. They've got pill@dhs.gov or pill@hq.dhs.gov. The Commerce Lab has them too. So there's lots of places that they can connect with like local folks in their agency to get yeah, that's allowable, go ahead and do it kind of thing.
Yeah. We've got one more question here that I'm hoping you can answer. It says, under FAR Part 10, how will the use of AI-powered bots for conducting market research be standardized across agencies? And also, how will COs determine that results have, especially in domains that are unfamiliar? So 36 CFR 1191, 36 CFR ties directly to CX within the federal space and for the public. Okay.
So I think there's a couple of things to start there, and AI education it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse, and so I'll show you, or I'll tell you a little bit about what I've seen. The first thing is educating people about AI, and DHS did a great job with that. You know, they have someone take a class before they're allowed to touch AI that walks them through, you know, what it is, what the guardrails are, what you should and shouldn't be doing, how it all works. Because sometimes it's like magic in a box, eh? Like, oh, I'm just going to put this question in and it's completely safe and it's going to give me, no, wait a second now. So that first step is like educating the workforce about what it is, how it works, all that kind of stuff. The second one is that a lot of agencies are now putting out their own like internal AI tools. And so like GSA has GSAII, DHS has DHS Chat. There's a lot of those internal ones that are a lot safer, and they've been trained specifically for certain workforces. So that's helpful a lot too. And then on, you know, the final kind of thing is sharing lessons learned. And so there's a couple of good communities of practice where people like Andrea are sharing their experiences with AI, both the good and the bad, because the bad is just as important as the good, right? Fail is first attempt in learning. And so you got to share those failures so people can learn. And just kind of trying things and always keeping a human in the loop, right? So the AI and the way that I'm coaching teams to use it is to speed things up, but not to do it for them, right?
Yeah.
it can help them do it, but it can't do it for them.
Yeah.
And whether that's market research or whatever else, like it doesn't matter. So that's a prime example, right? I had a team here who was using AI for market research. And the first thing they did was they had it comb the IDIQ that they were using for vendors that looked like they could do it. That was their RFI. That was the first start. After that, they picked up the phone or maybe sent an email, I don't know, but they talked to the vendors to confirm, like, can you actually do the work, right? So that was the human in the loop part that closed the loop. And they got a lot of information out of that because it wasn't just like, hey, can you do this work? Yes, no, thank you, goodbye. It was, hey, we've got this requirement. And so they're doing a little bit of market research and exposure and everything else. So lots of great stuff there, but AI is not going away. So we got to learn how to use it and we got to do it safely and effectively. And so human in the loop is the way to go. But Brent Maravilla is on the call too. And so he's putting out some good stuff there as well. The DHS AI core is putting out a lot of great stuff. A lot of great stuff just all around with AI. Oh, and this is an ACT-IAC plug. I'm working with the ACT-IAC associates, and they're going to put out a video series about AI and procurement.
Oh, fun.
Specifically about procurement, not just AI and whatever else. So if you're interested, more about that'll be coming out soon.
I would also throw out that there's an RFI out right now for a new procurement ecosystem that is packed full of AI.
Yeah.
Coming out from GSA. So it's a super interesting RFI and request that has come out from GSA on that. So good stuff. We are just about at time, and I just want to thank you, Scott, for joining. You are always just so energetic and packed with information and have so much to share. And I hope that your enthusiasm can rub off on the entire acquisition community as we go through this. It's going to be really fun and really cool to see. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see this transformation take place and get us to some good outcomes, right? I mean, it is about, like you said at the beginning, service delivery outcomes and mission outcomes and this change in this procurement process can really support that. So
isn't it
thank
nice
you
to be
so much.
excited about procurement?
Yeah, it is.
So
Right.
nice.
There you go.
Thanks for having me,
Great.
Crystal.
All right.
And I'll have to return the favor and you'll have to be on the acquisition COI sometime.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you out and about.